skaters, welcome back. I'm so glad you're here. I am Coach Julia, and today we are moving on to the third portion of this project where I'm making a skating costume for Paolo Borromeo for him to compete at the Philippine National Championships in just 2 weeks. We are ticking down that clock. We are going to be making this costume. This is what we're working on. In part one, we talked about the design process of this, and I'll post a link down below. Part two, which was yesterday, we made these velvet pants. Now today, I'm going to be making this tunic. This is the most complicated portion of the whole project. Lots of intricate designs, intricate fitting, and it's definitely the part that's going to take me the most time to complete. So this is what we're going to be tackling today, that tunic.
Let's start with a quick rundown of our fabrics. We have this leftover black four-way stretch velvet, and then we also have next to it this power mesh. It's a four-way stretch that I dyed using a combination of eggplant and navy blue. I also dyed this solid spandex. This is a bit of leftover burgundy power mesh that I'm going to be using. Then I found these two gorgeous stretch velvets. One is a kind of a pumpkin-y orange, and the other one is a butternut squash. Both of them are a four-way stretch, so this is going to work really well for our top. We have some white spandex that we're going to use for accents, and then this gorgeous black mesh that has crystals already embossed on it. I love that. And this is our full color palette for our project. The first thing we're going to do is take the tunic pattern I've already made, and then I have a picture of what I want the design to look like. So based on that photo, I am just going to draw in all of the details on this tunic. I also am marking each of these with which color I'm going to use. It's kind of like a paint by numbers, but with fabric. Once I have all of those different colors marked into their places, I'm actually going to cut this in half. I'm chopping it apart because this is going to be pieced in a few different ways. So I have some big pieces and some small pieces. Some are stitched together and some are going to be appliqued on. And then I'm just going to repeat this process on the back. I have the back all drawn in with seam allowances marked and everything. So we're going to start by cutting this in half so that I can apply the zipper. And now we have it cut up into nice two pieces. So we're ready to go with cutting out the fabric. We're going to begin with that solid purple spandex fabric. This is going to be the base fabric for the shirt. Going to get it laid out nice and smooth and begin cutting out each of the main tunic pieces. And then I'm also going to cut all of those main tunic pieces out of the purple mesh. So the whole front and the whole back is going to be a layer of solid purple, and then over it the purple mesh. This is going to give it a little bit of a darker color and to give it a little bit of added richness and dimension. The next step for me is going to be assembling the shoulder. So the shoulder has this cool accent piece with the black mesh and black glitter, and I don't want a seam on there. So I'm pinning together the front and the back, and I'm going to cut it out as one piece. So I'm starting out by cutting out the pattern piece as one piece, and then I can lay that on both the nude color that I'm using and also the black crystal, so that we can get a nice sort of overlay with the crystal over the nude, and this is going to be the inset on our neck. Continuing on, we're just going to cut out some more of these little pieces that are going to get appliqued onto the tunic top. So we have a number of different white pieces that are going to get cut out. We're going to grab that burgundy mesh and cut a whole bunch of little burgundy mesh pieces based on what I have marked on the tunic. All of those paint by number colors, we're going to start cutting all of those out. And of course we have our beautiful stretch velvets. We've got that mustard stretch velvet, that burnt orange stretch velvet. I have a whole pile of little pieces all carefully marked out, and it's time to start assembling all of those appliques that are going to go onto the purple base of the tunic. I'm going to start out with my big sun wheel on the front. So this I'm going to be putting together kind of like a quilting process. So each little seam is going to be put together so that I have a sort of a wheel that I can then applique on. So I'm going to pin each seam together so that I don't lose my place and accidentally put them in the wrong order. From there, I'm going over to my serger, and I am just going to stitch each of these little pieces together, and then we open it up and you can see this little sun wheel. Lots and lots of threads to trim off here, and then I'm just going to use a cool iron to press it out a little bit. I'm going to use a press cloth. I didn't put that part on camera, but when you're pressing velvets and nylons and things like this, you want to be very careful with the material. So I use a damp press cloth under a somewhat cool iron, but when I do that, I can get it really flat, and it's going to applique a lot nicer onto the bodice of this tunic. So taking one side of my tunic, I am just going to be placing these items on and carefully pinning them down. So sort of gauging where I want each of these elements to be. There's a little bit of play here with how high I want things on the top or how low. So I'm just going to be placing all of these elements onto the tunic and then pinning them down. Now we're going to tackle the neckline. We're going to do just a couple little appliques, create a little interesting effect on the neckline. You can see all of that. I just have continued a little bit off camera, so you can see the whole front is all pinned on and ready to be stitched. So now we're going to go over to my tailoring machine. This has a really good zigzag setting, which is going to be the best thing for stitching all of these down onto the tunic. All right, so we have almost the whole front put together. Quite a few little pieces have been appliqued on here. It's looking good so far. I'm really, really happy with our progress up to this point. The next step is going to be working on the back of the tunic. Since the tunic on this is asymmetric and the shoulders are different, I can actually sew one shoulder together. So I'm going to pin that shoulder together and then take it over to my serger this time and serge that shoulder seam. All right, so we have one shoulder done on our tunic. Lines up really nicely. I'm very happy with that. Now we can go ahead and insert the neckline on that side. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to pin it, and then we're going to take it over to the serger and stitch those two pieces together. And now you can see that that neck is inserted into one side of our tunic. And now before we put that zipper in, it's time to finish all of the appliques on the back. So we're just going to have a little bit of fun here, laying everything out, getting all the colors arranged correctly, pinning everything down, and then once again, going back to my tailoring machine and stitching all of those little appliques down. Next, it's time to sew on the sleeves. So we are going to do just a double layer of the purple mesh. We're going to add a little bit of that butternut squash colored velvet. So it kind of twists around the sleeve as it travels down from the shoulder to the wrist. Now we can take it over to our tailoring machine and applique it on exactly like I've done with the rest. We have a zigzag stitch, we have thread that matches the velvet. Oh, and here's Alfie. He spent quite a bit of time keeping me company in my sewing room. The next thing we're going to do is the tedious task of pinning the shoulder of the sleeve into the shoulder of the tunic. Once all of those pins are in place, we can take it back to our serger and we're going to zip those seams together. And now our tunic looks like a big cross. We have the sleeves extending out and the front and the back of the tunic extending out. Now we can do what's maybe the coolest part of this. That's this burgundy and white shoulder accent. So I am going to be putting this burgundy half circle on there, and then these little white, so they remind me of piano keys, little piano keys that go around the shoulder and around the sleeve. So we're just going to pin each of those little piano keys on. And before I do the burgundy part, each of those piano keys needs to be appliqued on. So all of those piano keys have been stitched on. It looks really, really cool. And now we can put on our little burgundy half circle. So my phone did not like the file where I actually showed you stitching this on. So unfortunately, I don't have that little piece of the puzzle. But once I got it stitched on, I took this foldable elastic. I showed you it earlier in white. So on the first video, I showed you this elastic in white. I dyed it at the same time as I dyed the purple fabric. So now it is a much better match for our costume. I'm going to hide the seam in between the burgundy half circle and the white piano keys with this purple strip of elastic. So that is getting appliqued on just like I've appliqued the rest of the items on this tunic. I really love how that purple little strip of elastic it looks. It's just a great finish between those piano keys and the burgundy shoulder. Now it's time to apply our invisible zipper. This is such a nerve-wracking part for me. I have done a ton of invisible zippers, but I always get nervous when I put one in because I want those lines to match up perfectly on the back. Once I have it in, I can go ahead and seal up that underarm seam and the side seams so that we have a pretty much wearable tunic. And we're going to take it back to the serger and serge all the way up from the wrist, all the way up the arm, through the armpit, and down to the hem of the tunic. Next, we're going to put a black velvet collar onto our tunic. This is going to tie in really nicely with those black velvet pants. Now we're going to be putting on some cuffs. We're going to do a simple 1-inch elastic ring that's going to be inserted into this cuff. The next step is going to be taking this really cool trim I found, wrapping it around the outside of that elastic wrist, and we're just going to stitch it on with some hand stitching. This is going to bring a little bit of shine to his wrists and give it a black edge which matches the black pants and the black V-neck velvet collar. All right, the sewing on this tunic is complete. The next step is to have a fitting with Paolo. He gets into town in the next day or two, so he's gonna come over, try on the pants, try on the tunic. We're gonna fine tune any little fit issues, and then we're gonna see where I need to sew the tunic down so that it matches the pants. That way he can put it on as a one-piece kind of an outfit. But for today, we are done with making the tunic for this skating costume.
Oh boy, you guys, what a big project this has been with the tunic. I hope you enjoyed following along with all of those complicated little pieces of sewing and intricate work that was. I'm really glad to have this stage of the sewing project done. Oh, now we can just move on to the most fun bit, for me at least, and that is going to be adding those crystals, doing all of that stoning work. We will be tackling that tomorrow, so make sure you come back tomorrow so you can see the next phase of this project. If you enjoyed following along with this today, please do give us that thumbs up, and as always, I look forward to reading all your comments in that section down below. If you haven't done so yet, then hit that subscribe button and the little notification bell so you can see all my videos when they come out. Happy skating, and I'll see you next time.